Young Millionaire told his fiancée he was bankrupt to test her love. What she did made everyone froze. The golden hues of the setting sun bathed the skyline of New York City, spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan Harrington's penthouse. The living room, a modern masterpiece with sleek marble floors and plush leather furnishings, exuded an air of luxury and accomplishment. Yet tonight it felt cold and suffocating. Ethan sat on the edge of the expansive white sofa, his hands clasped tightly together as he stared at the coffee table. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple, despite the perfect temperature of the room. Across from him, Clara Bennett perched on a sleek armchair, her posture upright, her expression one of curiosity mixed with unease. "What's going on, Ethan?" Clara's voice broke the silence, soft but edged with concern. Her emerald green eyes searched his face for answers. "You've been acting strange all day." Ethan looked up, meeting her gaze for the briefest moment before looking away again. His throat felt dry, his heart thundering against his ribcage. He had rehearsed this moment countless times in his head, but now that it was here, his resolve faltered. "Clara," he began, his voice hoarse, "I have something to tell you." Her brows knitted together, a flicker of worry crossing her features. "What is it?" He exhaled sharply, his hands gripping his knees. "I've lost everything," he said, the words tumbling out like a dam breaking. "The business, the investments, it's all gone. I'm bankrupt." For a moment, there was silence. Clara blinked, her lips parting slightly as if to speak, but no words came. She leaned back, her hand instinctively moving to clutch the delicate pendant around her neck. A gift from Ethan on their last anniversary. "Ethan," she finally said, her voice a whisper, "what are you saying? Is this some kind of joke?" "I wish it were," he replied, his tone heavy with despair. "The market turned, and I made some bad decisions. I didn't see it coming, Clara. Now the bank is taking everything, the house, the cars, even the business." Clara shook her head slowly, her mind racing to process his words. "This can't be real. You're Ethan Harrington, the golden boy of tech. You've built an empire. How could this happen?" "I made mistakes," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He looked up at her then, his eyes glistening. "And now, I need to be honest with you. Things are going to get hard, very hard. And I won't hold it against you if you want to reconsider us." Her expression changed in an instant. The shock gave way to something else, something he couldn't quite identify. Hurt? Anger? Disappointment? She leaned forward, her hands trembling as she set the pendant back against her chest. "Reconsider us?" she repeated, her tone sharp. "What does that even mean, Ethan? Are you saying I should leave you because you're no longer rich?" "I'm saying I don't want to hold you back," he said, his voice breaking. "You deserve someone who can give you the life you want, the life you deserve. I can't do that anymore." Clara rose to her feet abruptly, the movement causing her chair to scrape against the marble floor. She paced to the window, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She stared out at the skyline, the city lights beginning to flicker to life. "You should have been honest with me sooner," she said quietly, her back to him. "I didn't know how," Ethan admitted. "I thought I could fix it before it came to this. I didn't want to lose you, Clara." She turned around slowly, her face a mixture of anguish and resolve. "You think this is about money?" she asked, her voice rising slightly. "Do you really think so little of me?" "It's not that," he said quickly, standing now. It's just that I know what money means in a relationship. I've seen it tear people apart. I didn't want to put you through that." Clara's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she walked toward him. She reached for her left hand, sliding the engagement ring off her finger. Ethan's heart sank as she placed it gently on the coffee table between them. "Clara," he started, his voice breaking. "I need time to think," she said, cutting him off. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled. "This isn't just about the money, Ethan. It's about trust. And right now, I don't know if I can trust you." She turned and walked toward the door, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Ethan followed her to the threshold, his chest tight with panic. "Clara, please," he called after her, his voice desperate. She stopped but didn't turn around. "Goodbye, Ethan," she said softly, and then she was gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click. Ethan stood frozen for a moment, his hand still outstretched. Slowly he turned back to the empty living room. The silence was deafening. He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "What have I done?" he whispered to himself, the weight of his actions crashing down on him like a tidal wave. The city lights twinkled like a sea of diamonds through the expansive windows of Ethan's penthouse, but their brilliance offered no comfort to the man sitting alone in the darkened room. Ethan Harrington leaned back in his chair, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his mind racing as he replayed the evening's events. Clara's expression, the tremble in her voice, the way she had placed the ring on the table, it all haunted him. He had told her he was bankrupt, a lie carefully constructed to gauge the depth of her love for him. But now, in the silence of his empty home, doubt gnawed at him like a relentless predator. Ethan wasn't bankrupt. Far from it. Over the past year, his tech tup had experienced explosive growth, making him wealthier than he had ever imagined. He could afford anything, mansions, luxury cars, even his own private jet, but the one thing he couldn't buy was certainty about Clara's feelings. The memory of the conversation that had planted the seed of doubt in his mind replayed like a bad dream. It had been at a gala 3 months ago. Ethan had stepped away to take a call and returned just in time to overhear Clara's friend, Lauren, talking to another guest. "She's lucky to have him," Lauren had said, her tone dripping with envy. "But let's be honest, would she really be with Ethan if he weren't so rich? I mean, the man practically prints money." The other guest had laughed, and Ethan had stood frozen in place, the words cutting through him like shards of glass. Was it true? Did Clara love him for who he was, or for what he could provide? The question had plagued him for weeks, growing louder with every passing day. He knew Clara was kind and compassionate, but the doubt lingered, fed by his own insecurities. And so, he had devised the test. Now, with Clara gone and the ring sitting abandoned on the table, the weight of his decision pressed heavily on him. The soft chime of the elevator broke the silence, followed by the familiar sound of footsteps. A moment later, Ryan, Ethan's best friend and business partner, appeared in the doorway. "You look like hell," Ryan said, dropping his messenger bag onto the kitchen counter. Ethan managed a weak smile. "I feel like it." Ryan walked over, taking in the glass of whiskey and the haunted look in Ethan's eyes. "So, how did it go?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She left." Ryan sat down across from him, his expression a mix of concern and disapproval. "What did you expect? You told her you were broke, and then basically handed her an exit strategy." "I had to know," Ethan said defensively. "I couldn't marry her without being sure." "Sure of what?" Ryan shot back. "That she's not some gold digger? Clara's not like that, and you know it." "I thought I did," Ethan admitted, his voice dropping. "But then I heard Lauren talking about her at the gala. It got in my head. I couldn't stop wondering. So you lied to her." Ryan's tone was flat, but his eyes were sharp. "You lied to the woman you claimed to love, just to see if she'd stick around when things got tough. Do you even hear how messed up that is?" Ethan bristled. "I had to be sure," he repeated. Ryan shook his head, leaning back in his chair. "Ethan, love isn't a science experiment. You don't test it with lies and manipulation. You're playing with fire." Maybe Ethan conceded, staring into his glass. "But I had to know before it was too late. If I'm wrong, if she's not who I think she is, it's better to find out now than after we're married." Ryan studied him for a moment, his expression softening slightly. "And what if you're right? What if she does love you, and this stupid test ends up driving her away?" Ethan looked up, the weight of Ryan's words settling on him like a lead blanket. "I don't know," he admitted. "I guess I didn't think that far ahead." "Clearly," Ryan said, his voice tinged with frustration. He stood, pacing the length of the room. "Look, I get it. You've been burned before. You've worked hard for everything you have, and you're afraid of losing it, or worse, of being used for it. But Clara isn't like the others. She's different." "Is she?" Ethan challenged, his voice rising slightly. "How do I know that, Ryan? How do I know for sure?" Ryan stopped pacing and turned to face him. "You don't," he said simply. "That's the thing about love, Ethan. It's a risk. You have to take it on faith. If you can't do that, then maybe you're not ready for marriage at all." The words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He opened his mouth to respond but closed it again, the weight of his guilt and uncertainty rendering him speechless. Ryan sighed, grabbing his bag. "Look, it's your life. But if you ask me, you're going to regret this. And when you do, I just hope it's not too late to fix it." With that, he walked out, leaving Ethan alone once again. Ethan stared at the empty doorway, Ryan's final words echoing in his mind. What if she surprises you in a way you're not ready for? He didn't know the answer, but the thought filled him with a sense of dread he couldn't shake. The streets of New York City blurred into streaks of light as Clara Bennett sat in the back seat of a cab, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She stared out the window, her reflection mingling with the city's glow. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away, refusing to let them fall. Not here, not now. Her mind replayed the scene at Ethan's penthouse, the trembling in his voice, the anguish in his eyes, the shock of his words. Bankrupt. Everything gone. The words rang in her ears like a cruel echo. "Miss, we're here," the driver announced, pulling up to her apartment building. Clara nodded, fumbling in her purse for cash. "Thank you," she murmured, slipping out of the cab and stepping into the quiet lobby. Her apartment felt colder than usual, the stillness unsettling. She dropped her bag by the door and sank onto the couch, her eyes landing on the engagement ring still clutched in her hand. The diamond caught the light, sparkling as if mocking her pain. She had loved Ethan. Still did, if she was being honest with herself. He was charming, intelligent, kind, everything she had ever wanted. But tonight, he had shattered something inside her. It wasn't the loss of wealth that hurt the most, it was the lack of trust. He had hidden the truth from her, blindsiding her with the bombshell of his financial ruin. She pressed her hands to her face, a sob escaping her lips. "Why didn't he just tell me?" she whispered. Ah. The night stretched on, sleepless and heavy. By morning, Clara had made a decision. She couldn't stay in the city, not while her emotions were still raw. She needed space, perspective. The familiar scent of pine greeted Clara as she stepped off the train in her hometown, a small, picturesque place nestled in the countryside. Her parents' modest house came into view as she walked up the quiet street, the sight bringing a bittersweet comfort. Her mother, a warm woman with graying hair and kind eyes, opened the door and immediately pulled her into a hug. "Clara, sweetheart, what a surprise. What are you doing here?" "Just needed some time away," Clara said, forcing a smile. Her father joined them in the cozy kitchen, his weathered hands resting on the table as he listened to Clara's story. She spared them the details of Ethan's wealth, focusing instead on the emotional betrayal she felt. "I thought I knew him," she said, her voice trembling. "But now I don't know what to believe. If he didn't trust me enough to be honest, then what does that say about us?" Her mother reached across the table, placing a hand over hers. "Love isn't always easy, Clara. Sometimes people make mistakes because they're afraid. That doesn't mean they don't love you." Her father nodded, his deep voice steady. "True love isn't about what you have, it's about who you are when you have nothing. That's when you see someone's real character." The words lingered in Clara's mind as the days passed. She spent her time helping her parents around the house, baking with her mother, and taking long walks through the countryside. It was during one of those walks that clarity finally struck her. She still loved Ethan. That much she couldn't deny. But what mattered more was that she couldn't stand the thought of him suffering alone. Back in her childhood bedroom, Clara opened her laptop and began researching Ethan's business and assets. It didn't take long to find the name of his lawyer. Taking a deep breath, she dialed the number. "Hello, this is Thomas Wells," a brisk voice answered. "Mr. Wells, my name is Clara Bennett," she began. "I was engaged to Ethan Harrington. I understand he's in financial trouble, and I want to help." There was a pause on the other end. "Miss Bennett, I don't think I can disclose anything about Mr. Harrington's situation." "I'm not asking for details," Clara said quickly. "I just need to know how much I can contribute. I have some savings, and I'm willing to sell my belongings if it will make a difference." The lawyer hesitated. "That's a very generous offer, Miss Bennett." "Are you sure about this?" "Yes," Clara said firmly. "Please, let me know how I can help." After ending the call, Clara opened her closet and began pulling out items to sell. Designer dresses, shoes, jewelry, all gifts from Ethan that she knew would fetch a good price. As she packed the items into boxes, she felt a strange sense of peace. This wasn't about proving anything to Ethan or trying to win him back. It was about doing what felt right. No matter how things ended between them, she couldn't ignore the love they had shared. A few days later, Clara received confirmation that her contribution had been deposited into Ethan's account. She sat by the window, looking out at the quiet street, a mix of emotions swirling within her. She didn't expect gratitude or recognition. She wasn't even sure if Ethan would find out what she had done. All she knew was that, in her own way, she had kept her promise to love him, even when it hurt. For the first time since that night at the penthouse, Clara felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of healing, not just for Ethan, but for herself as well. Ethan Harrington sat at his desk, the weight of the past few days pressing heavily on his shoulders. The sun filtered through the windows of his penthouse, but its warmth felt distant, like a memory slipping through his fingers. His phone buzzed on the desk, snapping him out of his daze. It was a call from Thomas Wells, his lawyer. Ethan hesitated for a moment before answering. "Thomas," he said, his voice weary. "Ethan," Thomas began, his tone cautious, "something unusual has happened. I just received a deposit into your account. It's not a large sum by your usual standards, but—" "What kind of deposit?" Ethan interrupted, his brow furrowing. "It's from Clara Bennett," Thomas said, and Ethan froze. "She transferred what appears to be her life savings. I wasn't sure if you were aware of this, but—" Ethan shot up from his chair, his heart pounding. "Wait, Clara, she what?" "She also sent a note, asking that the funds be used to cover any outstanding debts. Ethan, she thought you were truly bankrupt." Ethan sank back into his chair, his breath catching in his throat. He closed his eyes, the guilt washing over him like a tidal wave. Clara had believed his lie. Not only that, but she had gone so far as to sacrifice her own security to help him. He rubbed a hand over his face, trying to process what this meant. All he had wanted was to test her love, to know for certain that it wasn't tied to his wealth. But now, the reality of her selflessness left him reeling. "Do you want me to reverse the transaction?" Thomas asked cautiously. "No," Ethan said quickly, then softened his tone. "I mean, not yet. I need to think." Hours later, Ethan sat on the couch, staring at the engagement ring Clara had left behind. His mind replayed every moment of their time together, the way she had laughed at his jokes, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her dreams, the quiet moments they had shared when words weren't necessary. A knock at the door jolted him from his thoughts. He opened it to find Ryan standing there, holding an envelope. "This came to the office," Ryan said, handing it over. Ethan frowned, taking the envelope and noting Clara's handwriting on the front. His hands trembled slightly as he tore it open. Inside was a letter, written in her familiar, elegant script. He sat down and began to read. "Dear Ethan, by the time you read this, I'll already be gone. I've decided to leave New York and start fresh somewhere new. I know we've been through a lot, and I want you to know that I don't blame you for anything. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes it forces us to make hard choices. Even if we can't be together, I'll always be grateful for the love we shared. You taught me so much about strength, passion, and what it means to dream big. Those memories will stay with me forever. I've done what I can to help you, even if it's just a small gesture. I hope it brings you some peace and helps you rebuild. I wish you nothing but happiness and success, Ethan. You deserve it. With love, Clara." Ethan lowered the letter, his chest tightening. The finality of her words hit him like a punch to the gut. She was truly gone, and it was because of him. "What does it say?" Ryan asked gently. Ethan handed him the letter, unable to speak. As Ryan read, his expression softened. "Ethan, this is real love," he said quietly. "She's willing to walk away, to sacrifice for you, even after everything." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. "What have I done?" he muttered. "I wanted to test her love, and now I've pushed her away." Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. "You still have a chance to fix this," he said. "How?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with anguish. "She's gone, Ryan. She doesn't trust me anymore, and maybe she's right not to. I lied to her. I broke us." Ryan shook his head. "You can still make this right. But first you need to decide, are you willing to risk it all to win her back? Or are you going to let her go and spend the rest of your life regretting it?" Ethan sat in silence, his gaze fixed on the letter in his hand. Clara's words echoed in his mind, "Even if we can't be together, I'll always be grateful for the love we shared." He thought about the woman who had given so much, who had seen him at his worst and still chosen to help. She deserved better than the lies he had told. She deserved the truth. But would the truth be enough? Could he undo the damage he had caused, or was it too late? "I don't know if she'll ever forgive me," Ethan said finally, his voice trembling. "There's only one way to find out," Ryan said, his tone firm. "But you need to be honest this time. No games, no tests, just the truth." Ethan looked up, determination flickering in his eyes. "You're right," he said. "I owe her that much. And if she'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve her." Ryan nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Then what are you waiting for?" Ethan stood, clutching the letter tightly. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. He couldn't let Clara go without a fight. The train screeched to a halt at the small station, and Ethan Harrington stepped onto the platform, the crisp country air biting at his face. His heart pounded as he clutched the bag slung over his shoulder, his resolve as fragile as the early morning frost clinging to the ground. Clara's hometown was quaint and unassuming, a stark contrast to the towering skyscrapers and relentless energy of New York City. Yet here, amidst the quiet streets and familiar charm, he hoped to find redemption. After hours of scouring the town for her, Ethan learned from a kind shopkeeper that Clara often spent her mornings helping her parents at their modest bakery on Main Street. Instead of confronting her there, he decided to set his plan into motion, a plan to show her how much she truly meant to him. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, as Ethan stood in the middle of the town square. Around him, a small crew of locals, people he had hired with the promise of a generous donation to the community center, worked tirelessly to transform the space. Fairy lights crisscrossed overhead, casting a soft golden glow. The square was lined with flowers, their fragrant blooms arranged in a path that led to a small stage. On the stage, Ethan had set up an easel displaying photos of their memories together. Their first trip to Paris, a candid shot of Clara laughing in a sunlit park, a picture of the two of them on a snowy New Year's Eve. "Do you think this will work?" Ethan asked one of the volunteers, an older man with a kind smile. The man chuckled. "Son, if she loves you, this will be something she'll never forget. If she doesn't, well, at least you'll know you gave it your all." Ethan nodded, his throat tightening. He checked his watch. It was almost time. Clara Bennett was exhausted from a day of baking and cleaning, her apron dusted with flour as she walked home. She hadn't noticed the town square earlier, but now, as she passed by, she stopped in her tracks. The sight before her took her breath away. The square was bathed in soft light, the decorations making it look like something out of a fairy tale. Curious and slightly hesitant, she followed the path of flowers, her heart pounding with each step. When she reached the stage, her eyes widened at the photos. Memories of her time with Ethan stared back at her, each one a reminder of the love they had shared. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "Ethan, what is this?" "Clara," came a familiar voice, soft yet steady. She turned to see Ethan standing at the edge of the stage. He was dressed simply, his usual confident demeanor replaced by vulnerability. He took a deep breath, stepping closer until he was standing just a few feet away. "What are you doing here?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "I came to make things right," Ethan said. "I've been a fool, Clara. I lied to you, and it was the biggest mistake of my life." Clara's brows furrowed. "What do you mean you lied?" Ethan looked down for a moment, gathering his thoughts, then met her gaze. "I wasn't bankrupt. The truth is, my business is thriving. I wanted to test your love, to see if it was real. I thought if I told you I lost everything, I'd know for sure if you cared about me or the money." Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You lied to me? You made me believe you'd lost everything?" "I know," Ethan said quickly, his voice breaking. "It was cruel and stupid, and I'll never forgive myself for hurting you. But Clara, I was scared. Scared of losing you, scared of not being enough. And in trying to protect myself, I pushed you away." He dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket and opening it to reveal the engagement ring she had left behind. "Clara, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for it anyway. You showed me what true love is. You gave me everything, even when you thought I had nothing. And now, I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that I'll never take your love for granted again. You are the most valuable thing I've ever had. Will you give me another chance?" Clara stared at him, her emotions warring within her. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at the man who had shattered her heart, but now knelt before her, bearing his soul. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You broke something between us, Ethan. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight." "I know," he said, his eyes pleading. "But I'll do whatever it takes to earn it back. If it takes months, years, I don't care. You're worth it, Clara? You've always been worth it?" The weight of his words hung in the air, and for a moment, silence enveloped them. Then, slowly, Clara reached out and took the ring from his hand. "I don't have an answer for you tonight," she said softly, "but I'll think about it." Ethan's heart clenched, but he nodded. That's all I can ask for." She turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the glow of the fairy lights. Despite the uncertainty, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. He had taken the first step, and now all he could do was wait. The crisp evening air was filled with the soft hum of crickets as Clara walked along the quiet path leading away from the town square. Ethan's heartfelt words echoed in her mind, his desperate plea to win back her trust pulling at her heart. She clutched the engagement ring in her palm, the diamond catching faint glimmers of light as it reflected the moonlit sky. "Do I give him another chance?" she whispered to herself, her steps faltering. Behind her, the town square remained alive with the gentle glow of fairy lights. As she paused by a bench to sit, trying to quiet the storm of emotions swirling within her, she heard footsteps approaching. "Excuse me, dear," a voice called softly. Clara turned to see an older woman standing nearby. Her silver hair framed a face lined with age but bright with warmth. The woman smiled, her gaze kind. "I couldn't help but overhear," the woman said, gesturing back toward the square. "I was walking by and saw that young man on his knee, pouring his heart out to you. It's hard not to notice something so rare these days." Clara blinked, surprised. "Oh, I didn't realize anyone was listening," she murmured. The woman chuckled, lowering herself onto the bench beside Clara. "Forgive me for intruding, but it seems like you're at a crossroads. I've seen that look before." Clara hesitated, unsure whether to share her story. But something about the woman's presence felt safe, comforting. "He lied to me," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He tested me in the cruelest way. And now, he wants me to forgive him." The woman tilted her head thoughtfully. "That's a heavy burden to carry, isn't it? The pain of betrayal, mixed with the love that still lingers." Clara nodded, her eyes glistening. "I don't know if I can trust him again. What if he breaks my heart a second time?" The woman reached out and gently placed a hand on Clara's. "Let me tell you a story," she began. "Many years ago, my husband and I were young, just like you too. He made a mistake, a big one. It nearly destroyed us. I was angry, hurt, convinced I could never forgive him." "What happened?" Clara asked, her curiosity piqued. The woman smiled wistfully. "He spent months proving himself to me, not with grand gestures, but with small, consistent acts of love and honesty. It wasn't easy, and I didn't make it easy for him. But I eventually realized that holding on to my anger was only hurting me. Life is too short to hold on to pain, dear. If someone is willing to fight for you, maybe they're worth the risk." Clara looked down at the ring in her hand, the older woman's words sinking in. "But what if I'm wrong? What if he hurts me again?" The woman squeezed her hand gently. "Then you'll have loved bravely, and that's never a mistake." Clara found herself walking back toward the square, her heart pounding in her chest. Ethan was still there, sitting on the edge of the stage, his head in his hands. The photos and lights seemed to cast a melancholy glow around him, a stark contrast to the hope that had filled the space earlier. "Ethan," she called softly. His head shot up, and he stood immediately, his eyes filled with both relief and fear. "Clara," he breathed. "You came back." She stepped closer, her gaze steady. "I've thought about everything you said. About us. About what you did." "Die." Ethan nodded, his throat tightening. "I know I hurt you. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me." Clara held up a hand, silencing him. "I'm not going to pretend this will be easy. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight, Ethan. But if you're willing to take it one step at a time, I'm willing to try." Ethan's eyes widened, and for a moment he seemed too stunned to speak. Then he stepped forward, his voice trembling. "I'll do whatever it takes, Clara. I swear." A small smile tugged at her lips. "I'm holding you to that." In the weeks that followed, Ethan kept his promise. He began to show Clara not through words, but through actions that he was serious about earning her trust back. He was patient, transparent, and willing to confront the mistakes he had made. As a gesture of gratitude, Ethan also donated a significant portion of his wealth to Clara's hometown, funding scholarships, renovating the community center, and supporting local businesses. When Clara confronted him about it, he simply said, "This town gave me a second chance by bringing me back to you. It's the least I can do." Months later, on a warm summer night, the town square came alive once more. This time, it wasn't an elaborate proposal but a community celebration organized by Ethan and Clara together. Lights twinkled overhead as music filled the air, and families danced beneath the stars. Clara stood at the edge of the square, watching the joy unfold around her. Ethan approached, holding out his hand. "May I have this dance?" She smiled, taking his hand. "You may." They moved to the center of the square, where they swayed to the music. The world seemed to fade away as they danced, their eyes locked on each other. Under the canopy of stars and lights, Clara felt the weight of the past lift, replaced by a quiet, enduring hope. Their love had weathered the storm, and though it bore scars, it was stronger for it. "In Ethan's arms," she whispered. "Thank you for not giving up." He smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Thank you for giving me the chance to make it right." And as they danced beneath the starlit sky, surrounded by laughter and music, they knew they had found their way back to each other, stronger, wiser, and ready to face the future together. As the camera pans out, leaving Ethan and Clara dancing under the shimmering fairy lights, the image fades into a still frame of the town square, a symbol of hope, resilience, and second chances. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, but sometimes it's those very challenges that lead us to the most beautiful endings. Ethan and Clara's story reminds us that love isn't about perfection. It's about forgiveness, growth, and the courage to try again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration today. And for more heartwarming stories that will move your soul, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, and remember, love always finds a way.